Canada's housing market collapse is once again making global headlines, and we're going to get into what is going on, the collapse and the data behind this. So it's Bloomberg reporting on this. It was the Wall Street Journal just a couple of months ago. Once hottest housing market goes ice cold at a bad time for Canada, which is very interesting, and we've talked about this many times. And if you look at the inflation adjusted index for real residential property prices in Canada, which comes from the US as well, you can see that this has absolutely collapsed. And likely it is way lower than where the mouse is on screen right now, because obviously inflation is reported way lower than it actually is, and we know this, and it's just criminal, but it is what it is. And they basically go through the data in this article about how this is the worst decline in Canadian history for real estate. So talk about scaring investors away. That is definitely happening, and you can see what's going on this chart. So 2022 to 2024, and it is higher than the 80s, the 90s, 2008, 2009, 2017 to 2019. So it is higher right now than all of those times in the past. Yeah, it's not a housing crash, guys.
Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind?
I mean, come on, it's not a housing crash. It's just an incy-wincy correction.
Itsy-bitsy little gully right now.
I mean, it's just absolutely crazy, isn't it? What these people say. Of course, it's a fucking housing crash, but people will lead you to believe, the mainstream media, for example, that this is just a minor correction. It's almost like in the real estate industry, they're banned from saying that word, crash. And then you can basically see what's happened here is residential investment into real estate is obviously collapsing. Nobody wants to invest in houses when housing prices are going down. What do you know? And obviously what people don't understand here is that the dependency of Canada's economy on housing, as highlighted by Bloomberg nearly 3 years ago, you can see it was above 40%. So this was published way back in 2022. So think about that. You've had the biggest correction in history, and how is that impacting the economy? It's going to have major impacts into the economy. We've talked about the jobs that are going to be lost in construction. That is just going to accelerate. The industry is warning of that.
We're in the process of laying off thousands of people right now. A year from now, give or take, those people that are working on all those high-rise projects that are getting finished are going to be unemployed, which is terrible.
And besides housing and government, what have you really fucking got left in the Canadian economy? I mean, unfortunately, the bubbles of immigration, government, and the housing bubble have basically been the entire economy. And it used to be that Canada was an economic powerhouse in terms of commodities, but it's far from that anymore. And if you want to ask the question, are investors going to be rushing back into the housing markets when rates go down? You've got to look at what's going on with rents, because rents are falling so fast that even with interest rates coming down, it's not going to mean people are rushing back into the fucking housing market buying houses, particularly those investors. Why are we focusing on that group? Because that is the group that has mainly been participating in the market, that really gets the euphoria, the speculation, and pushes up prices very, very quickly. So that means you're relying more on affordability, and affordability is still at a low, and people cannot afford to, pay $1 million for a shitbox house in the suburbs of Toronto. And then the CMHC is warning of a wave of mortgage delinquencies. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. It's October, by the way. This isn't January, but you can just look at the charts. I mean, delinquencies are rising in Canada, and that's just going to continue. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to just look at the trend and know that that's just going to continue moving forward. Now, the CMHC, obviously always late to the party, is jumping on that bandwagon. The country's housing agency projects that a growing number of Canadians will struggle to make payments as they renew their mortgages this year and next. But what's really interesting about this data is the 5-year fixed rate mortgages here. So the thing which is key, I think, is an estimated 2 million mortgages across Canada are coming up for renewal this year and in 2026. And according to the Bank of Canada, about 60% of those outstanding mortgages across the country are set to renew with higher payments in 2025 and 2026. So what does that mean? Obviously, more and more people are living paycheck to paycheck. Food insecurity is way up. So can people then afford a higher payment on their biggest expense, which is their house? They're already being eaten alive by inflation. The answer to that is obvious. It's no. And another key distinction here is most of these borrowers hold a 5-year fixed rate mortgage. So they're unlikely to be opting for the variable rate, which means they're going to be in a tricky situation because, as I've discussed many times on this channel, the Bank of Canada does not control the 5-year fixed rate mortgage rate that you get at Canadian banks. Believe it or not, that's a risk premium plus the bond rate for the 5-year government bond as just the base level. So that rate could move higher as the Bank of Canada cuts more and more and more, and markets are pricing in more future inflation because inflation is here to stay. It's not going away. That was a rhyme, I think, but it wasn't intended to be. But they're lying to you about inflation anyways. But the decades of disinflation that the world has experienced are at an end because of deglobalization, unfortunately. And interest rates coming down because of the collapsing economy was discussed in the question period last month. Just take a listen to this.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
Looks so
I know many
smug.
things.
So smug.
I know many things. And one of the things I know, the member opposite, the leader of the opposition, just mentioned interest rates. One thing I know is that Canadian interest rates are much lower than American interest rates. They're lower because this country's fiscal situation is strong, because this government has a plan to...
It's not because the government has a plan. It's not because their fiscal situation is strong. And Mark Carney knows this. This is what's so frustrating for many of us out there. I've had many of you message when I've shown this video before, is because Mark Carney, he obviously knows this. And obviously the central bank policy rate, I mean, that doesn't affect interest rates on the 30-year, for example, that are at near a 10, 20-year high right now. So, I mean, it's just laughable. He's not even correct when he's saying that interest rates are coming down because on the long end, they're actually rising. That's a lie for a start off, but this guy knows, and it's just yet more virtue signaling because unfortunately, a lot of people are uneducated when it comes to this shit.
to grow this economy, and we will keep doing it. We'll keep doing it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the collapsing economy is bringing down interest rates, but the financial expert doesn't even know what his...
And that's true. The collapsing economy is bringing down interest rates, at least on the front end. That's why the Bank of Canada is reducing rates, even though they're kind of just getting rid of their mandate without even telling people. But they haven't been following their mandate for the past 5 years anyway, so why are they suddenly going to start following it now? I don't think so. Is once again, it's just showing you how these politicians just virtue signal and manipulate. And it should be infuriating for people to listen to shit like this because really it's just showing you how they're trying to manipulate what you think, even though that they actually know themselves that, hey, interest rates coming down, that's not a sign of a good thing. Mark Carney cut interest rates after the financial crisis. Was that because everybody was having a party and that was a great time? I don't think so. Interest rates going down are a sign of tight money, not loose money, believe it or not. That's why interest rates come down. It's because people are willing to lend less and less and less, and the risk is actually increasing. Completely the opposite to what most people think. And guess what? People are still burning down pre-construction homes. The housing market is crashing so much that people are actually burning down houses houses, pre-construction ones, thank God, so nobody's potentially being harmed by this. But we've seen this so many times, so many pre-construction homes being burnt down before they're built. Two people, they turn up, they're organized, they've got the gasoline, and why would they want to burn them down? You've just got to ask that question. So this is another one. We actually covered this on the channel at the time, and again, it's just a sign. This arson is a sign of the crashing housing market. And another thing that's a sign, which is a big data point here, is the fact that when you look at GDP per capita here, and that's not the best measure, Canada is the worst when it comes to these 9 countries, but it's currently experiencing the fastest standard of living declines since the Great Depression. Just think about that. And inequality has got a lot worse. So that means this 0.4 decline here, that actually takes an average from the GDP. And if that number was a median, it would just show the utter collapse and destruction of the middle class, which is also leading into birth rates being at an all-time low. So Canada is collapsing. The housing market has been the cash cow of the economy for the past 15, 20 years. So now that it's imploding, obviously the economy is absolutely collapsing. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear that it's all about tariffs. Highly recommend you check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN, you also want to help support my work, get ExpressVPN, the best VPN. It's a win-win. You get the best VPN and you help support the channel. Thank you so much for watching this, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.